Hello everyone. So, my talk is on the importance of diversity and representation in the industry. As a person of colour, I have a few thoughts on that. So, before we kick off, I'm Dean Abdu. Some people may not know me. I work over at Gaming Bible as a video producer, presenter, and writer. I've been part of the inaugural Game Awards Future class, which started last year, that Jeff TV launched. And I've been in the industry roughly 5 years now, professionally, but closer to 8, from just doing a few side gigs when I was at uni. So throughout this talk, it's going to be it's more of a story about my journey through the games industry and how I learned about the importance of diversity and representation with all the steps that I've taken. And hopefully by sharing my own story and experiences, you'll learn yourself the importance of all this. The thing I want you to just take away as well, that although it's just my story, this is sort of something that a lot of people of colour or underrepresented voices have experienced themselves in many different ways. On top of that, throughout the talk, I'm going to show you some of the lessons I've learned, being the need for blind recruitment, the importance of underrepresented voices in senior roles, unconscious bias training, creating a safe space for people of colour where they want to report senior managers, and just celebrating other cultures and religions as well. We'll touch upon that through each of the steps of my journey. So with that said, let's get kicked off with how I even got in before fully joining the games industry, and that was when I wanted to pursue a career in the media industry. Before fully pursuing that, I was a bit naive to the world as a person of colour. I was 17/18, didn't really know much about the big old adult world. So when I told my family that I didn't want to be an architect or an engineer or a doctor like many of the other family members that I had, I wanted to pursue a career in the media industry, a lot of them came to me with warnings saying, this is a tough industry to break into, so you won't have an easy time of it. And I remember in particular, just before heading off to university, I was at the Friday prayer with my uncle, after the Friday prayer at the mosque. My uncle pulled me aside to give me a specific warning, being like, the media industry is one thing, it's tough to break into generally, but someone like me who's Algerian and Muslim, it's a bit more difficult because there are all sorts of hurdles that I will not be aware of until further down the line trying to pursue it myself. Although I didn't realise it for a good few years, it was still a warning that was played in the back of my mind. So I know when I went to university to study media production, I still tried to do as much as I can by being my own hype man in a sense, because I knew I couldn't afford the privilege to be humble, and I had to just try and go for any and every opportunity that presented itself. So with that said, here are my small beginnings within the media industry. Whilst at university, I was making a few videos on a YouTube channel called Halo Follower. It was something that I thought would give me a bit of a head start because I had that warning. I was like, okay, so I need to get a head start before even leaving university to get into the industry. So this channel, Halo Follower, was a channel that I followed beforehand. And one day I noticed it had a new voice, so being me, I just dropped them an email being like, hey, saw you have a new voice. I'm a radio presenter for my university radio station, so how about you want to add me as well as one of the new voices? And that led to the guy emailing me back. We got into a call, and lo and behold, I managed to get onto that YouTube channel. And I thought to myself when this happened, what were my family members talking about? This is easy. I managed to get onto this big old YouTube channel just straight off the bat by emailing a guy. So I thought, I'm set, this is it. I was still at university, this was during my second and third year, I was gaining experience for the next 2 years on this big old YouTube channel. But after doing that for about 2 years' time, getting the experience working with PR teams, creating sponsored work, leading a video team as well, creating content strategies and more, it sadly wasn't the jump start in the industry that I had hoped for. So, after handing in my dissertation my third year, before waiting to find out if I passed university, I just hopped on a train straight to London because that's where I thought most of the media opportunities would be. And I crashed with my cousin. Thankfully, I had a cousin who lived in London. I crashed with him on the couch, and I managed to. I was applying for every job opportunity that was coming that way, and thankfully, I landed a PR internship at an agency that did work for Warner Brothers, 20th Century Fox, Netflix, and more. So it was a great bit more of experience to add to the 2 years of experience that I already had. But it was also my first insight into the people behind the scenes, the media industry. So whilst it was focusing on film and TV, I also did get to work as part of the games team at Warner Brothers Games. And shock horror, one of the things that I discovered when working there was that there was not many diverse members part of this team. There was one colleague who I bonded in particular with, who was also a person of colour there. He was a person of colour within a senior role. We both loved DC. He dubbed himself as Flash and he called me Kid Flash, and we just had a really great working relationship. But this is where I learned one of my first lessons about the industry, which is the importance of hiring more underrepresented voices in roles of senior roles. Throughout my time there, it was thanks to this colleague of mine that I was being put forward for a load of opportunities. When something would come up, he would be the person to try and get me involved. Any new clients or anything, he'd put my name forward and try and push me ahead. And it was great because I got to work with Warner Brothers Games on all their Lego properties. I worked on the Lego Dimensions titles. And he even helped to try and extend my internship there, so my internship doubled in length, all thanks to him trying to keep me around. With that being said though, sadly my internship did have to eventually come to an end. And much like my uncle did after the Friday prayer, he pulled me aside to give me another talk. And again, it was much of the same, being a talk about the difficulties of being in this industry as a person of colour and trying to stick around. But it was a bit more of an optimistic talk. Whilst my uncle's talk was a bit of a warning, his talk was like trying to inspire me to not give up, to keep sticking around because we need more people like us around in this industry to further diversify. And it was after this internship when I truly realised just how difficult it was to properly break into the games industry. So despite having 2 years of experience at university, doing the YouTube stuff, this year of experience working at a PR agency with Warner Brothers, which is, a small name, after this internship, was just not landing any jobs. And even before the internship ended, I was applying for jobs to try and make a break because I knew I needed to get another job somehow. But yeah, it was not easy, and I had to sadly leave London because nothing was landing. So despite having a CV where I highlight I worked for Netflix and Warner Brothers and 20th Century Fox, along with leading a video team and creating content strategies for a big YouTube channel, it wasn't quite landing. So this is where I learned about the importance of blind recruitment, because I was thinking to myself, I have a strong CV, I have friends who have CVs as well with less experience, but they were getting into all the roles that they wanted. And the importance of blind recruitment in this industry would help to strip away identifiable character traits from the person's CV that aren't related to the job or experience needed. Blind hiring, it would also help remove some initial preconceived notions that an employer might have of said employee if they've just read their name on a CV. So, for example, my name being Dean Abdu, there will be people that will have preconceived notions of that surname Abdu. Despite the fact that it's actually technically a French name, but that's a whole history lesson for another time. So yeah, it was very easy to be made to think that you have a weak CV, but that's not always the case. And this is actually an email that I got for an internship that I applied for. Also, just let it settle in for a second, I thought I had to apply for a second internship to gain even more experience, because I felt like I wasn't quite getting anywhere. But yeah, this email was a very confusing one because despite at this company applying for many entry roles, I was getting responses saying I was experienced enough, and then when I applied for their internship, they said I was too experienced. So it was very confusing because I was both good and not good enough. So I didn't know where to go from there other than to continue building up my portfolio because I felt like that's the only way to try and get ahead of it, continue building a portfolio. Maybe I'll be super good, and that's something that no one's asked for yet. So we'll see. But this confusion is something that a lot of people of colour experience themselves, being told that they're both not good enough and also too good, and that's just due to unconscious bias from employers when they're going through CVs because they read names and they don't think past that surname. So until I could get a full-time job within the industry, I had to move back home to Birmingham to live with my parents. And I continued creating content with all the free time that I had because I needed to make a job, so I had nothing else to do but create content. So I started writing my own blog, doing a few videos on YouTube, writing for a blog website for free because I wasn't getting paid a position, so I thought, well, I need to get something, so free jobs it was. And after facing just so many rejections, I just kept on building my portfolio to be even more impressive. And this led to this little show which is not playing. Bear with. So this is one of my first ever showreels. Kind of highlighting all the experience that I got with the industry before probably breaking into the industry. This is stuff that I did in my parents' living room, just creating videos of all sorts. And I was even working with an Australian TV host who had their own entertainment website, which was called Geek Bomb. This was Geek Bomb, and I managed to go to the Injustice 2 launch event where I interviewed Ed Boon, the creator behind Injustice in Mortal Kombat. So I was still doing things that, I personally thought was relatively impressive. Alongside that, I was reviewing movies, games, and TV shows and more. Just anything and everything that I felt would give me more experience. So we fast forward about 5-ish, 6-ish months, and I'm still trying my best to get a job in the industry. And one day, I get a message from my colleague, the one who called me King Flash, and he was the Flash, and he said that he knew someone who was in charge of gaming publication, and they were hiring for a new video editor and writer. And he said that he forwarded over the CV to him and managed to set up an interview. So that's the interview, and thankfully I managed to get that job. And it was great. I was excited because I finally broke into the industry. All this hard work was paying off, except then I slowly realised it wasn't the hard work that got me there. It was because I knew another person of colour who had a connection, and he managed to set me up for the job. So this is, again, why it's so important to have underrepresented voices in senior roles like this, along with blind CV reviewing and blind recruiting. So fast forward a little. We're now fast forwarding through my last 5 years of being in the industry. I managed to go from a small gaming publication to Gamer Network, the good folks who organise all this, and Gaming Bible / Lab Bible. And over the last 5 years of being in the industry, it became very, very clear that there is a huge problem. Because gaming is something that is loved globally, it's not just in the Western regions. Yet the only voices that I saw who were representing the games industry were predominantly white voices. So I made it sort of a personal mission of mine once I was in the games industry, once I was getting bigger roles, to try and bring more representation in some manner. And during my time at Gamer Network, I had the unique opportunity of working across every single website. Eurogamer, VG247, Rock Paper Shotgun, and even Dicebreaker. I took part in all of these, and I was creating on-site videos, and this was videos to be used on their web pages. And I thought to myself, I could give it quite a bit of power here, so let's just see what I can do with it. And what I did with it was plaster my face on all these websites. I thought it would be, a bit of a breath of fresh air to see someone a bit different on all of these websites. But I wasn't just plastering my face on these websites, because the company had other underrepresented voices there. So I would try and bring them on camera. Their role wasn't to be on video, but I put them on video because why not? And it was a great opportunity to just try and bring more representation to the games industry on such large platforms. And, it was a wild adventure, and I will happily admit that I didn't use my power ever so slightly there. But I had no idea when I was going to get that opportunity again, so I have absolutely zero regrets. But this highlighted another thing in the industry that needs to be done, and that's unconscious bias training. We all have our own unconscious biases, even me, myself, I have my own unconscious biases. With so many companies and sites being predominantly run by white voices, they will unconsciously keep promoting those same voices, which is why I felt the need to show more underrepresented voices in the position that I had. Unconscious bias training is something that's beneficial for both employers and employees to help make them more aware of some of the harmful unconscious biases that they might have. In this instance of working at Game Network, there was the unintended harmfulness of not highlighting other viewpoints and voices. This actually leads nicely to the next part of my journey, which was the Black Lives Matter movement and the part I played in the games industry. Now, as many of you know, last year, people all over the world were in uproar over the death of George Floyd, and the Black Lives Matter movement was in full swing. There were marches and protests happening all over the world. And a lot of people were hurting and many wanted to do something to help. I was still working at Game Network at the time, and during this time, there were discussions that were taking place across the company on how to help, which was great. Like, these are discussions that should be happening. But the problem that I noticed here was that these discussions were taking place among predominantly white voices. And the problem with that, and I think this cartoon kind of perfectly highlights, the issue with white privilege within the games industry, is that when you're someone who hasn't experienced any of the hardships that people of colour have gone through and have predominantly lived a life of privilege, then you won't truly fully understand the best way to help. Most folks were also aware of some of the potential harm that they could do due to their own unconscious biases as well when trying to pitch ideas for how to help. Sweet as they may be, there was some harmfulness to them. So during one of these discussions, I piped up because I was one of very few people of colour within that company, and I wanted to share my thoughts on what the best approach would be to try and help this movement. And I explained that what this industry is severely lacking is proper representative voices. So instead of speaking on behalf of people of colour, why don't you invite them in so that they can speak on their own behalf? Many are struggling to obtain that same huge platform that you all have, and it's due to your privilege that you're able to get that platform. So how about you reach out with a helping hand and pull up and elevate those voices and just take a step to the side for a moment and let them just take the lead. And this led to street takeovers happening across Game Network, which was brilliant because we managed to raise over $35,000 for the Black Lives Matter movement. It was a huge success, and all these channels had a variety of different voices on them, just talking for themselves and sharing their own stories and their own experiences. And along with all these underrepresented voices being on such huge platforms, the audiences as well were starting to feel a bit more represented. I remember during these streams, there was quite often comments being like, oh, it's great to see someone who looks like me finally be on this channel and talk about their stories. So, yeah, it was a bit of fresh air and it was a huge success. That led to highlighting the need for diversity managers, because it isn't just me that's doing all of this within the industry. there is many folks across the board doing all sorts to try and help drive the industry forward by having more diversity within it. We've got Naysar and Stephanie, who's constantly working on getting underrepresented people access to previews and reviews for certain games and titles. Takeovers, led by Tara, which is dedicated to helping bring more women and non-binary developers into the games industry, and Limit Break, which was founded by Anissa, which is a mentorship scheme aimed at underrepresented voices who need career advice and guidance. But these are all like incredible people doing incredible things. But it just further highlights that we need diversity managers, because if diversity managers were within these companies, making them more diverse, then these people wouldn't feel the need to have to do these things themselves. All these opportunities that people of colour are getting and so many other things were thanks to other people of colour. Along with that, with the diversity managers, they would also help to create a safe space for people of colour. At the previous job that I had, there was a moment where I felt uncomfortable with a colleague because I felt like there was something just off about our working relationship. And so I spoke to another colleague about this, to which their response was, maybe you're thinking too much into it. And so that led me to be like, okay, well, I guess I should just stay quiet and not do anything about it. But really, it was because there was a toxic manager there, and I was the only person of colour that spoke about it. So diversity managers would create a safe space so that people would be able to report on these things without being told, maybe you're thinking too much into it. So a lot of these opportunities, as I said, came about because people of colour were stepping up for them. And that's just another one of the many reasons why it's so important to have representation within the games industry, because it is people of colour that will truly understand the hardships of how we progress through this industry. So shortly after these streams, I was offered a new position at Lad Bible to join their gaming team. And at Lad Bible, at Gaming Bible, I continued to try and be a more prominent vocal representative voice. Along with working on videos, I also got the chance to write some great feature pieces, and these feature pieces were about the importance of diversity, what studios are missing out by not celebrating other cultures and religions, and things like this. And it was all to try and highlight what a lot of places were failing at doing, which was talking about and celebrating other religions. It'd be so enjoyable to celebrate Eid and Diwali alongside Easter and Christmas. It just highlights the beauty of what this world has to offer. At Gaming Bible, I wrote a feature on why it's important for video games to do in-game events, celebrating the holidays, but also in real life, over at my previous job, over at Gaming Network, when it was Eid, I did come in with Eid cakes to hand out to the office because it was nice to celebrate something different amongst my peers. Because I did love all my colleagues and they're all wonderful people, so why not share a holiday that I love with the people that I love? Hopefully that now leads up to a wrap up of all the points that I brought up, being like what needs to happen in the industry. These are only just a few things. There are so many more things that companies can do to better represent underrepresented voices. I just want to end by saying that this photo, Pocket Play is a great organisation in the games industry. Every time I look at the team there, that kind of like, that's what I want to see just across the whole games industry, just more of that kind of diversified team. So the more we can do to elevate voices, the more inclusive the industry becomes, the more we advertise for senior roles, rather than filling them behind closed doors, the benefits we'll get. Each studios just need to include and celebrate more religious cultures. And we need to do less overall speaking on behalf of underrepresented voices, and actually invite them in to speak on their own behalf. And that's why it's important to have representation within the games industry. Hopefully you like this talk. Hopefully I didn't babble on and say things that didn't make any sense. I'm Dean Abdul, and that's me.
Dean, thank you so much. That was incredible. It's so cool.